After completing Pokemon Scarlet and filling out the Pokedex recently, I started thinking about what kind of challenge run I could do. My first thought was to try a solo run with Lechonk, since it's a Pokemon the game forces on you, but after a quick search, I realized that approach has been done to death. So then I thought, as a fellow duck, why not use Quaxly? But that felt a bit too basic as well. Instead, I went with a slightly different idea. Since you can catch a Psyduck near the beginning of the game, I decided that Psyduck would be my partner for this run. The rules are simple. I can only use Psyduck for all of the battles in the game. To make things a bit more challenging, I'll also try to avoid using items during battle, and I'll aim to stay at roughly the same level as major opponents like gym leaders and team star bosses. If I need an item or end up doing some leveling, I won't consider it a failure, but hopefully these limitations will add enough challenge to make it interesting. We begin the game and I name my character Quack because it's just too funny to me to watch characters throughout the game quack at me. Unfortunately though, the game doesn't let us dive right in. We've got a few tutorials to get through first. We grab Quaxly as our starter and immediately embarrass Nemona with it. She then guides us through catching a Pokemon, forcing the Lechonk I mentioned before into our team. After that, we somehow survive falling off a cliff without our arms being ripped from their sockets and trail Koraidon through a cave. After it saves us from Houndoom, we meet Arven for our final forced battle before we can catch Psyduck. After quickly dispatching him, we climb the tower to enjoy the obviously not a low-res PNG of our school. Now at long last we reach the bridge, where as if on cue, a Psyduck is waiting for us, like it knew the whole run would be about him. We catch him, and now the real challenge begins. The first thing we need to do is level up Psyduck to level 9 to be on par with the first true Nemona fight. I also wandered around and collected as many TMs and items as I could find. Going up against Nemona this time is much tougher than our first encounter, seeing as she has a Palmy that Psyduck is weak to. Fuecoco goes down as easy as you'd expect, but then Palmy comes out and terrestrializes. It outspeeds Psyduck and one-shots him with Thundershock. You can lose this battle and still progress, but I figured I would try one more time with a slightly different strategy. I teach Psyduck Endure and Psybeam, to maybe get past the initial attack, but all it did was prolong the inevitable. I considered leveling up a bit, but as I said, this battle doesn't really matter, so we can just move on. Once inside, we can take Nemona's advice and head to a shop to buy a Mystic Water for Psyduck and give it to him. We then head to the school but are stopped by a couple Team Star Grunts harassing Penny. These fights are no problem, but they do give us access to terrestrializing ourselves. After that, we finally head into the school and go through a massive amount of unskippable dialogue. The game hands us our objectives, and we get the ability to ride on Koraidon. That is fun to say. And now we can head out and get the actual real challenge underway. Our first major stop is going to be the Cortando gym where Katie the bug-type leader is. On our way there, I level up Psyduck to level 15 and search the area for any items or TMs that might be helpful. Before we can fight Katie, we have to do a silly gym challenge. Do any of you actually like these things? I think they're pointless and boring, but either way, we push an olive or whatever and head to the battle. Katie hits us a lot and lowers our special attack a few times with her first Pokemon, but I managed to crit her second one and one-shot it. However, Teddiursa is a bit too beefy to take out. Since our first attempt fails, I check to see if we have any TMs or anything we can use for a new strategy. I teach Psyduck Water Pulse and Swift, and go back to try once more. This time I start by terrestrializing and using Water Pulse and Swift to take out her team, and almost take out Teddiursa, leaving it with just a sliver of health. It's obvious that it can be done with the use of an item or leveling slightly, so I opt to gain one more level and try again. I use the same strategy as last time, and this time it works. We get our first badge and head on to our next challenge, the Stony Cliff Titan Cloth. This fight is much easier, as Cloth is weak to water moves, so a couple water pulses brings it down. Then Arven joins us, and we take it out for good. Unfortunately, this is basically the one and only time that I managed to beat one of the many challenges by staying around the same level. As I played the game and wrote this script, I went into much more detail about each battle and what was required to beat them, but it ended up being way over 30 minutes long. So instead, I'll save some time and tell you that Psyduck does manage to beat everything solo through the final gym by overleveling. Once we reach Ortega, I am forced to level Psyduck all the way to level 100. The stat increase alone is enough to take out the last 3 challenges on this map, but then comes the Elite Four. By the way, if you'd like to hear the full challenge in detail, i.e. everything I cut out, feel free to ask in the comments or join my Discord. As we get to the Elite Four, Rika beats us immediately, as Donphan hits with an Earthquake after surviving with Sturdy, Dugtrio outspeeds causing a Sandstorm, and Clodsire has absorbed water which negated my Surf. Then it proceeded to poison us and take out Psyduck. I feel like we just got unlucky though, so I give it another shot. The next try goes about the same up until Clodsire. Knowing that it has water absorbed this time, I don't waste a turn trying to use Surf. It hits us with an Earthquake instead, and the Sandstorm almost takes out Psyduck, but he barely survives, and we take it out. Thankfully it lets us heal between the Elite Four members, so I do that and then I face Poppy. I was worried again since Magnezone also has Sturdy, and it hits us hard with an electric attack. But Tinkaton is the only other Pokemon that gets in a hit, and we're able to take her out and win the match. The GOAT Larry is up next, and Tropius destroys Psyduck. I underestimated the power of Sunny Day and Solar Beam. Sadly, this means we have to fight all of them again if we want to retry. When I finally do get back to Larry, because Rika beat me again, I do the smarter thing and use Ice Beam instead of Surf on Tropius. I proceed to do the same thing to the rest of his Pokemon as well, which gets us through the battle without much issue. Flamigo hits us, but it's not enough, so we beat another Elite Four member. With a name like Hassel, you would expect our next opponent to be a challenge, and it turns out, since I'm a noob when it comes to knowing type weaknesses and strengths, you would be right. Apparently Surf is also not the way to go for this fight. Ice Beam is once again our way forward. Obviously, Hassel defeats us, but we trudge through the other members and give it another go. I get all the way to Baxcalibur, but since Psyduck is very low on HP, I don't feel confident we can take it out, so I decide to use a Max Potion. It hits us really hard, taking us right back to critical health, but I just go for it and take it out with one Ice Beam. This gets us through all of the Elite Four. Unfortunately, we still have to face the Pokemon top champion, Gita. I was really nervous about this one, but it turned out to be probably the easiest fight out of the 5, which means Psyduck becomes the champion. Moving forward from that, we head to the lighthouse to meet up with Arven. Even though we took a detour to become champion, we still somehow make it there before him. His incompetence shows even further through our battle together, as he doesn't even get a hit off on Psyduck. That completes one of our paths, so we move on to complete another by meeting up with Clive. In a shocking twist, Clive turns out to be Director Clavel, who challenges us to a battle. I'm not sure if it mattered, but it did seem to start raining during the fight, and Gyarados put up a really good fight, almost taking out Psyduck. This makes me wary against the Meowscarada, so I heal. That apparently offended them, so it proceeded to one-shot Psyduck. On our next attempt, Abomasnow just about takes out Psyduck with a wood hammer, so I heal on the Houndoom. Gyarados brings us back down below half health, but we push forward all the way to the Meowscarada again. This time, I just attempt to use Ice Beam, but I failed to realize that it outspeeds us, so we lose again. I give Psyduck a couple Carbos, and then while Houndoom is out, I also use an X-Speed. This is enough to allow us to go first and beat Meowscarada with one Ice Beam, which means we have beaten Clive, or Director Clavel. Penny is our next target, and Jolteon does not mess around, almost taking us out with a Thunder. Vaporeon apparently has Water Absorb too, which also almost cost us the whole fight. I heal up there a couple times since Hydro Pump doesn't hurt that much, and then we are on to Penny's final Pokemon. It takes 2 Surfs and a lot of damage on our part, but we make it through victorious. There's another path down, now all we need to do is beat Nemona again. We start off getting rocked by her first Pokemon, but then breeze through until Goodra. Since we can't one-shot it, we take another hit, bringing us pretty low. But unless Skeledirge is faster than us, we have nothing to worry about. Which it isn't, so that's the final path finished. Now, we only have to head to Area 0 and fight the final challenge of the game. The 4 locks that are guarded are easy enough to get through as they are 2v1 battles. The hardest part is sitting through all the exposition they dump on you while you make your way down. At the bottom we have a few more battles that we fight unfairly before finally making it inside to face the final battle against some robot or something. As this is the final fight and I've already broken every rule I made, I start the battle by pumping up Psyduck with items. Combining an X speed with an X special attack makes Psyduck strong and fast enough to wipe out all of Professor Sada's Pokemon. There is technically one more fight that it forces us to use Koraidon, which breaks yet another rule, but it's more of a formality since I'm not even sure you can lose this fight, despite my best efforts. And that's the game! We may not have been able to avoid over-leveling and using items, but Psyduck still managed to beat all of Pokemon Scarlet by himself. Except for a few battles at the beginning and some mandatory double battles. But either way, I consider this a success. Whether you agree or not with the outcome, hopefully it was still a fun experience. If it wasn't obvious, I'm not too knowledgeable on the ins and outs of Pokemon games, so it's possible that this run could have been even easier. If you have any tips for what I could have done better, or if you just have another challenge you'd like to see me attempt next, let me know in the comments. While you're there, consider leaving the video a like and maybe subscribing to the channel. We're trying to get 8 billion subscribers by the end of the year, so please help us out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.